Right, then the second part, we move on to small offices. I think if my colleague could just give a quick introduction. We did some research into small offices and the effects of the existing unitary development planning policy, which has a bearing on our consideration tonight. So,
as some of you will know, we've had a long-standing policy about protecting small offices in redevelopment, and last year we commissioned DTZ to look at that, and their conclusions are set out in page 3 of the briefing note that I hope you have. And just to read a couple of extracts from it, their main findings show that there is an adequate supply of small offices in Westminster, and that actually provisional small offices are part of the natural life cycle of a building, and that maybe that we should, that's why we've posed the question, really, is there actually a need for this policy? Just one thing I would add to that is that draft PPS 4, Planning Policy Guidance Note 4 on commercial uses, whose consultation period finishes today, does advocate local planning authorities having policies to promote developments that provide a wide variety of business space and accommodation. And I guess one thing that would concern me if we were to remove this policy is that on the face of it, we don't have any policies to promote offices for the businesses, for the 70% of businesses that exist in Westminster that employ less than 5 people. But I'll finish there.
Okay. Should we remove the policy protection for small offices? Is there support? Show of hands if there's some support for that. Does anyone want to clarify the reasons why they believe that this is the Hugh?
Yeah, a couple of points. This policy was formulated in the 1980s, as you know. The reason was because the perception there would be large clearance of historic stock and that everywhere there'd be large plate new buildings. We know that didn't happen for a variety of reasons. We know that we have a huge amount of historic stock that will always provide that kind of accommodation. And the fundamental point is the market change and the response, which is multi-use premises, short lets, business centres, and those models have emerged that didn't exist in the 80s at all. And as you know, we've done analysis to show how many workstations there are in certain parts of Mayfair, and there are enormous numbers. And I believe this policy really has passed its sell-by date.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone want to? Yes.
I would agree with everything Hugh's saying. Sorry, Barnaby Collins, DP9. I'd also make the point that the market dictates if there's demand for small offices, the market will supply it. And the way the market's gone recently is that business centres do provide this sort of accommodation, and I don't think you need a policy to provide it.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments in favour of removal of the policy?
Can we just say that on the question of small offices, the economic development team here at Westminster are looking at small start-up offices at low rents. Now, what we wouldn't want to see is any interference with the possibility of this happening, because there is a demand in certain areas for this type of use. But I emphasise this is not really in the core area. This is probably outside the core area because of the cost of actually renting those offices. But we're looking at somehow encouraging small start-up businesses to be able to actually afford to be able to do it. And whilst I hear about the core area, one's looking at quite high rents there, which these sort of people cannot afford. So we are presently looking at how we can achieve this. So whether that would conflict with what has just been said, I don't know.
I think sometimes offices reflect the kind of unique character of an area, and I kind of think of, say, the Regent Street area where the Crown Estate were enlightened enough to put in small offices as well as large offices on part of their redevelopment. And I think in that kind of area there is a strong argument for having the small office provision, and if it's allowing businesses to form and flourish in areas which are known for a certain industry or whatever. So I think there are areas of the city where we can be bold and say we have a city which is, say, more varied than other cities, and as part of that one would expect offices to be supporting at that. And that doesn't mean large multinational corporation headquarters. I think if the city was filled with those, it would lead to quite a bland landscape that is suited to the city, but Westminster's a bit more than that. It's more varied. So I'm a little more reticent, I think, to relax the policy too much. Whilst I hear the market would demand it, I think some of this is about engineering a situation where we should be providing what we think is best for the city.
Okay.
I hear that comment, but I think you'll find, the West End and Mayfair in particular is full of small buildings, small houses, which have got small floor plates. So you've got many, many buildings in Mayfair and the West End that have got floor plates of 500 to 1,000 square feet, which naturally lend themselves to letting as small businesses, as small office floors. So I think the market will follow that and provide the small suites you need. And certainly, for instance, on the Pollen estate, it's full of small lettings to small office occupiers because of the nature of the space they're offering.
Thank you.